Welcome back to my channel, because today we are diving into a revelation that has sent shockwaves through the entire wrestling world, a revelation that has been whispered about, speculated on, and argued over since the moment John Cena walked through the curtain for the final time at Saturday night's main event, because the private exchange that took place backstage, the quiet conversation that many believed would never see the light of day, has finally been brought into the open. And what Roman Reigns has now said about that moment has changed everything we thought we knew about his reign, his mindset, and the future direction of WWE itself. Because this was not just a meeting between two icons, it was not nostalgia, it was not a ceremonial passing of respect, it was something far deeper, far heavier, and far more dangerous. And after days of silence and uncertainty, the tribal chief has finally broken that silence and addressed the world, and what he revealed was not what anyone expected, because instead of comfort, instead of closure, instead of peace, his message was a declaration, a warning, and the beginning of a new era that feels darker, more intense, and more deliberate than anything we have seen before, an era where Roman Reigns is no longer simply defending his spot at the top but actively reshaping the battlefield beneath him. And to understand why this moment matters so much, you have to go back to the question that has dominated conversations across social media, locker rooms, and arenas alike, the one question that refused to fade away: what did Roman Reigns and John Cena really say to each other in that quiet hallway after the tributes were over, after the cameras stopped rolling, after the chaos settled, and after an era officially came to an end? Because everyone saw them talk, everyone saw the body language, the intensity, the gravity of the moment, but no one heard the words. And in WWE, words are power. Words shape narratives, and words decide destinies. And that is why when Friday Night SmackDown opened with an atmosphere unlike anything we are used to, fans knew something was different, because there were no fireworks, no explosive music, no larger-than-life entrances, just a single spotlight cutting through the darkness and illuminating the ring, and standing there alone was Roman Reigns, without Paul Heyman by his side, without the bloodline flanking him, without protection, without ceremony, just the champion, the tribal chief, the man who has carried the company on his shoulders for years, holding a microphone and staring into the distance with an expression that was impossible to read, an expression that balanced solemn reflection with quiet determination. And as the arena fell into complete silence, Roman Reigns began to speak, not loudly, not aggressively, but with a calm authority that immediately demanded attention. And he addressed the tension head-on, acknowledging what everyone had been thinking and talking about, telling the WWE Universe that for days they had wondered, speculated, and created stories in their heads, imagining secret alliances, power shifts, torch passings, and hidden wars, all because they saw two legends stand face to face. But according to Reigns, they were trying to force that moment into a narrative that did not exist, because what happened backstage was not part of a scripted story. It was not a tease for a future match, and it was not about friendship or rivalry. It was a transaction, a settling of accounts between two men who understood the cost of leadership, two men who knew what it meant to carry the weight of an entire company, generation after generation on their backs. And Roman made it clear that John Cena did not come to him seeking an alliance or offering one. He came seeking understanding, clarity about what comes next when the spotlight moves, when the cheers fade, and when the responsibility remains. And as Reigns described it, that conversation ended with words that were not a request and not advice but a warning, words that echoed louder than any chant ever could, when Cena told him that the throne was his, but that thrones attract dragons. And in that moment, the crowd leaned in, trying to process the meaning behind that statement, and Roman Reigns did not rush to explain it, because he wanted the weight of it to sink in. And when he finally elaborated, he did so with a cold, confident edge, dismissing the idea that Cena was referring to obvious challengers, making it clear that this was not about Gunther or any visible threat standing in the ring under bright lights, because those are problems you can see coming, those are battles you prepare for. And according to Reigns, Gunther was nothing more than an annoyance, a temporary obstacle, something to be dealt with in due time. But the real danger, the real dragons, were the ones hiding in the shadows, the unseen forces, the mysterious figures, the so called visionaries and puppet masters who believe they can control the direction of WWE from behind the scenes, manipulating narratives, influencing outcomes, and positioning themselves as the future without ever stepping into the light. And as Roman's voice grew stronger and more commanding, he revealed that John Cena, a man who built his legacy on being the ultimate symbol of light, loyalty, and visibility, looked him in the eye and told him that his role had changed, that being the champion was no longer enough, that sitting on the throne and defending it was only part of the responsibility, because now his real job was to burn away the darkness, to expose what hides beneath the surface, and to protect the kingdom from threats that most people never even see until it is too late. And when Roman Reigns slammed his fist into his palm, it was not a gesture of anger, but of resolve, a signal that he had accepted that role fully, and he delivered a message that felt less like a promo and more like a proclamation, aimed directly at every shadow lurking behind the curtain, every mastermind pulling strings, every group or individual who believes they can replace the bloodline, undermine the structure, or reshape WWE in their image without consequence, because according to the tribal chief, their game was over, and while they may believe they wanted a war for the soul of WWE, they had already lost the moment they revealed their intent, because this was no longer a fight they were choosing. It was a hunt they were being dragged into, and Roman Reigns made it chillingly clear that he was no longer just the head of the table, no longer just a champion defending a title, but something far more dangerous, the warden of the entire company, the one who controls the gates, watches the shadows, and decides who is allowed to rise and who is exposed and destroyed. And as he declared that WWE itself was his cell, it became evident that this was a transformation, not a heel turn, not a face turn, but an evolution of power, where Roman Reigns sees himself as the ultimate authority within the chaos, someone who will hunt down every hidden threat, reveal every secret agenda, and end every attempt to destabilize the kingdom he rules. And when he promised that he would find them, expose them, and end them, it did not feel like exaggeration. It felt like inevitability. And that is why the final moments of his address left the WWE Universe with more questions than answers. Because if the tribal chief is on the warpath, who is the first dragon he will hunt? Who is the mastermind operating from the shadows? Who is bold enough to challenge a man who now sees himself as both king and executioner? And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this moment so powerful, because it marks the beginning of an epic new crusade, one driven not by titles alone, but by control, legacy, and the very identity of WWE itself. So if you want to follow every step of this unfolding saga, every reveal, every confrontation, and every shocking twist, make sure you subscribe right now, hit the like button, turn on notifications by hitting that bell, and let me know in the comments who you think the true mastermind in the shadows is, because the hunt has begun, the shadows are being watched, and the future of WWE is about to be decided.